Good evening, everybody. I'm Manuel Llobet, CEO of Allergy Therapeutics. I don't know if you are familiar with our company. We are a name company, and we are focused on treating allergy patients that are moderate to severe, not mild patients. Mild patients can get on with antihistamines or corticosteroids, but severe patients cannot control symptoms. They have typically a miserable life. They cannot concentrate well. They cannot sleep well. And the only way they can feel better and get cured is through immunotherapy. So we treat these kind of patients through vaccination. We retrain the immunological system in order to train the immunological system to react normally to allergens. We've been a spin-off from GlaxoSmithKline. We spun off in '99. Since '99, we've been growing almost for the last 17 years on a compound annual growth rate of 9%, almost double digit. We are based in Worthing, South England. We have about 500 employees. And we are listed in the AIM market with the ticker AG. So that's more or less what we are. We are in the middle of the roadshow because we have announced year-end results yesterday. I think we start. Yeah, so Nick, our financial director, will take you through the highlights.
I just wanted to give you a few highlights from our financial results, which we announced yesterday, as Manuel said. Overall, we had sales of 48.5 million. That was up 19% on a constant basis, or 12% in real terms. Most of our sales are made in continental Europe, so we have a high amount of euro sales. Our core business, which is excluding the R&D, because we have two sides to the business, the European business, which already got products in the market, and various areas where we're also developing in R&D. We made 4.3 million operating profit, which was up from 3.8 million last year. We've been investing in R&D, and Manuel will talk later about that. The two main projects we've been investing in are in the US for a grass product, for grass pollen, and one in Europe, which is a birch product. We spent 16.2 million in this financial year on that. That's up from 3.1 million. We had a successful raise, which was in November of last year, 11.5 million equity raise, 11 million in net terms. And we finished the year with a strong cash position, 23.4 million. And that is enough money, enough funding to get us through the key trials that we've got in Europe and the US for grass and birch. And Manuel will talk about those later on. Looking at the operational highlights, we've increased our market share in Europe from 10% to 12% last year. Manuel will talk a bit more about the dynamics in the market, but it's an impressive performance considering the overall market is fairly flat. We achieved the primary endpoint for our PQ Birch. That's the key project that we have in Europe for this new technology platform. And we will be starting our phase 3 trial in early 2017. In the US, we had an inconclusive phase 2 trial. That means at the end of when we're trying to work out what dose we're going to take into our phase 3 trial, we didn't come to a conclusion what was the best dose. And Manuel will talk a bit about that further. Acaravac Plus, which is one of our products from the pipeline. So this is a product which is for dust mites. We have a product which we've been trialling. This is a sort of a prototype product we've been trialling on the market in Spain, which has been selling very successfully. But we've done a trial. We did a 1-year study to look at its performance. And the improvement in patients, we had a 50% improvement in patients, which is very strong. And finally, during the last financial year, we purchased some technology, virus-like particle technology, which we are going to use in our other main pipeline, early pipeline product, which is it for peanut allergies. And peanut allergies are very important. It's a big untapped market at the moment. It's worth probably about 8 billion in global market. This is at a very early stage, but obviously there's a lot of potential for the future. We'll actually pop straight over this slide because apart from just saying, well, I'll just say in very vague terms, there's been a lot of turbulence in the market. You've seen an impressive growth, almost 20% in our sales, and a lot of that has been driven by the fact that a lot of our competitors within the market are having severe problems, either in their supply chain or in the fact of ownership. Several of them are in transition, and it has affected their performance significantly, and we've taken advantage of that to take market share. I will now pass back to Manuel.
Yeah, maybe before talking about our strategy, what makes our company unique? We do vaccines for hay fever mainly. Our competitors in Europe typically need 15 to 20 injections to desensitize. So if you are allergic, severe allergic to something, you will go to the doctor will propose you a treatment that typically are using between 15 and 20 injections. In the US, it's much worse, it's 50 to 100 injections. And we have a unique proprietary technology that it's called MATA-MPL, or the commercial name is Polinex Quattro, that with just 4 injections, we desensitize patients. So you can imagine the difference if you have to go to the doctor 15 or 20 times to get injected, or just get only 4 times to get injected. So what we bring to the patients and the doctors is time and quality of life and a patient-friendly vaccine. And that's a unique proposition in the market, and no other company can offer a desensitization process in just 4 injections. This is why our main product is called Polinex Quattro, Quattro from 4. And our strategy is based on 3 areas. One, in Europe, we are building a nice, thriving, exciting business following a classical revenue business model. We are selling about almost 50 million pounds. We've been, as I said in the beginning, growing consistently year on year, and we are the best performer in Europe. We are improving our market shares, our margins, and we have increasing the capacity to invest in research and development to boost innovation and to enrich our pipeline. Then in the US, we follow a biotech business model. In the US, we don't have commercial infrastructure, we don't have commercial teams. So what we do in the US is we raise funds in the city and we finance development plans for Polinex Quattro. We started in 2004. We already invested $120 million in 3 different projects: Polinex Quattro Grass, Polinex Quattro Trees, and Polinex Quattro Ragweed, which are 3 different allergens for the same platform. And finally, we are working on the pipeline, on the new therapeutic areas, like the ones that Nick has mentioned, a new vaccine for house dust mite, which is a very important allergen, and a totally new vaccine for food allergy, in this case for peanut allergy. In Europe, we've got a really good year. We've been the best performer in a market that is not growing. We grew 19%. We took 2 points market share, and 3 of these points are because we acquired a small company in Spain here called Allerpharma that is now fully integrated in our Spanish operation. And why we have been able to outperform the competitors during this year because we've got a big integrity in our supply chains. As Nick mentioned, some of our competitors have got very disruptive supply chain. We've got providing a customer service track record of 99.9 to all our customers. We have this unique concept of ultra-short course aluminum-free vaccines, and we have one of the best commercial teams in place. The combination of these three issues has allowed us to take 2 additional market share points and outperform the market by 19 points. This is a breakdown sales by country and product. More than 90% of our sales are in continental Europe. The main market is Germany, where we get about 60% of our sales, but also interesting presence in Italy, Spain, and Central Europe. And by products, Polinex 4, that's the flagship product that we are trying to register in the US market. But all these products here are subcutaneous injections. In this market, you can have subcutaneous vaccines or oral vaccines. We are predominantly a subcutaneous company. And that's important because the US market, which is the biggest one, is a subcutaneous market. So our portfolio fits very well with the US market. Why Polinex 4 is going to be a breakthrough product in the US? Here is what the US have now to treat patients. So they don't have standardized registered finished products. The doctors buy some bulk extracts. They make their own mixes, and they prepare their own vaccines in the back office. And because it's so, let's say, primitive, the technology, they have to start with very diluted injections and then going up very slowly. And this is why it can take 50 to 100 injections to desensitize a patient. They don't have clinical evidence, are not registered products, not manufactured in GMP facilities, no standardization, and very slow to act, and of course very low compliance. 50% of the patients in the US, when they are told how the treatment is going to be, they don't start because they say, we cannot take this commitment. And 50% of them, of the patients that start the treatment, drop off within the first year. So what we are going to offer is standardized dose vaccines manufactured in GMP facilities audited by the HMRA here in the UK, with approval from the FDA, with multiple clinical trials showing evidence, clinical evidence and safety. Short injection, just 4 injections compared to 100, efficacy in 3 weeks as opposed to 12 months, and high compliance as opposed to low compliance. So as you can see, it's a totally different world. We are going to revolutionize if we can register Polinex 4 in the US. We've been working on that for the last 12 years, and we have already invested $120 million. But if we finally succeed, we will revolutionize that market that is estimated to be worth about $2 billion. And there are just 3 companies that can take advantage of this, 2 sublingual companies, and Allergy Therapeutics, that is the only subcutaneous company, which is the main segment of the US market. That we can pass is just about this $2 billion market and the possibility to be first to market. We think this is important, and as you know, Circassia, that was one company trying to register subcutaneous vaccines in the US, failed in their pivotal phase 3, so they have put on hold all their programs. So we are certainly going to be the first subcutaneous company to reach the US market. As Nick mentioned, in the pipeline we are working in other developments to develop a peanut allergy vaccine that's totally new. It's a huge problem in the US. Every year 200 to 300 children die every year because they take peanut butter, or they go to a feast with some friends and they get some peanut and they die from anaphylaxis. There are about 200,000 emergency visits a year in the US. In the UK also it's a severe problem, and we want to develop a vaccine to protect and immunize allergic patients to peanut. And to do that, we acquired a technology called virus-like particle technology. It's a technology that it's been used in cancer vaccines like Cervarix, that boost, it's an adjuvant and boost the immunological response. It's a very interesting concept because what we do with the VLPs, we create a structure that looks like a virus, and we bind the antigen into this structure. The immunological system is very efficient recognizing things that look like viruses. And therefore, by sort of cheating the immunological system, binding the antigen into this virus-like particle structure, you can get a highly immunogenic vaccine with low allergenicity. And that's key for an allergen like peanut, that is an extremely aggressive allergy. We are working on a preclinical stage. We are just finished an animal anaphylaxis model, and we will probably share results of this preclinical work before the end of this year. The house dust mite project is also a very important one. Pollinex 4, this ultra-short course 4 injections vaccine I mentioned before, it's for seasonal allergens, meaning the allergens that you will find in the spring, from trees, from flowers, from grass, from ragweed. But we didn't have a good vaccine for perennial allergens. There is a big part of the market that it's made of perennial allergens like house dust mite, cats or dogs or cockroaches, or all these things that are with us all year around. So we have applied the Pollinex 4 platform into this house dust mite allergen, and we are developing a Carovac 4, which is going to be a version, similar version than Pollinex 4, but applied to perennial allergens. We are going to go start phase 1 in 2017. We are going to get CTA approval probably before the end of this year. And that's a long-term project, but also that will secure growth for the next 15 to 20 years. And we are also working on other issues like adjuvant systems and symbiotics, microbiome now. It's a big issue. It's going to be part of the medicine of the 21st century. Everybody now is talking about microbiota, microbiome, symbiotics, and so on. And we have focused some part of our research in some strings of symbiotics that are that moderate the response of the allergy of the immunological system in front of some allergies. So they work as immunomodulators. We have a portfolio of symbiotics, and we are selling them across some European markets and are working very well. So that's more or less our portfolio and our projects. So in summary, for this year, we've got a very nice trading. We grew almost 20% in euros. We have moving forward our research and development projects in Europe and in the US. In the US, as Nick mentioned, we had an inconclusive result that will force us to do again the dose-finding study, and we'll have a delay of about 12 months on that project. A very exciting pipeline also progressing according to plan. And in general, I think it's been a year with significant progress in all our long-term strategic plans. So the outlook, how it looks, the outlook.
Outlook looks very good. I think as Manuel's commented, I think the timing on our US has perhaps shifted back by 12 months, but we will still be the first in the market with an allergy vaccine, which is very important. It's obviously a big market. The phase 3 Birch trial will start in Europe in early 2017, and that's very exciting. If that works well and we get the approval, then that will be the first of our new platform that's on the market as an approved product. Caravac Quattro, which is the dust mite, will start phase 1 study before Q2 17. And we continue to look for opportunist purchases or to simply drive forward our position in the market. So overall, we're very positive about the future of our company. We think we've got very good, strong pipeline. We've got a very strong market position, which we're growing constantly. And we're always looking for new geographical areas to exploit. Thank you very much.
Yes, can you explain what went wrong with your dosing study, please?
The what, sorry?
Your dosing study.
Yeah, the dosing study, it's about to be sure before you go into the final phase 3 study, you want to be sure what's the best dose that you are going to finally include in the product. So what you do is the clinical study here, for example, we would do some groups of people, and we would give you 5,000 standard units, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, 25,000. And then we inject you, we challenge you, we put a lot of pollen in a challenge chamber, for example, and then we measure the scores. How do you feel? And in a good dose response study, you would see that when you increase the dose of antigen, you get a better result up to a point where it's a plateau where if you keep increasing the dose, you don't get additional benefits. That point is the point that is the best possible dose. So the point where there is no additional benefit and you get the most efficacious result.
And what did your results show? Because you didn't manage to establish an equitable point there.
Well, in that US study, we'll have to do it again with we'll do it with a different technique. We did a very similar one in Europe where we got the perfect dose response and we picked the dose to go into the phase 3. In the US, we used a different technique. It did not work as expected, and we'll use the European technique.
It was inconsistent, basically. We couldn't. If you see a direct correlation, which we got, for instance, in the PQ Birch in Europe, you could pick a point that was the perfect point to move forward into phase 3. In the US, what simply happened was there was no clear pattern, and therefore you don't want to go into an expensive phase 3 trial.
And how are you sure that you're not going to have another result like that?
Because it's a very similar product. We got a very good dose response with Pollinex Quattro Birch, and this is Pollinex Quattro Grass. It's the same technological platform, but just changing the allergen. And we had a very good result with the CPT technique, so that we are going to use a technique that has proven to be successful. But there is always the risk not to get the result, but we think we'll get it.
Related question, really. I'm interested in probing how you assess the market entry risk in your sort of prioritization of sales growth. So you talked a little bit about problems with the FDA phase 3 studies, I think, for entry to the US market. But what if you just set aside the US market altogether? What sort of growth prospects would you have in Europe alone?
Well, Europe is about $1 billion, the market in Europe. So we have 70 million euros, now 50 million pounds, around 70 million euros, depending on the exchange. That means that we have a market share, because we about 6-7% if we account for the whole market. We could be a company of 150 million or so if we keep taking market share in Europe. The nice thing with the US is that it's an estimated 2 billion market. So and there are less competitors. In fact, there is no company in the injectable segment. So we could have all the injectable segment for us. So, but without the US, we still can be a very interesting company, maybe selling 100, 150 million pounds.
Anybody else? There's one gentleman here, another question. Have you got any other question? Anybody else? There's time for one more question. Gentleman over there.
Yeah, well, the elephant in the room, Brexit, how is that going to affect you doing a lot of R&D work over here and selling into Europe?
I think shall I take that one?
Yeah.
I think the position is basically in the short to medium term, it's actually, dare I say it, positive for us at the moment, because the effect in the currency markets has been that the euro's strengthened considerably, and that's obviously a benefit because we sell in euros. A reasonable amount of our costs are in sterling, and obviously we report in sterling. In the mid to long term, there is a risk there. The possible risk is obviously, depending on what agreement they get to in the end, we may have tariffs, and as we export, obviously, most of our product, there is a risk there. And there is also the risk from the regulatory side. At the moment, there's a common regulatory agreements across Europe, and that really helps us. Whereas if they were to go their different directions, then obviously that would create extra costs for us. We don't think it's insurmountable, and we also think, if you think about big pharma, there are a lot of Sanofi, GSK plants all over the UK that also ship across Europe, ship worldwide. So there'll be a lot of political pressure from the industry to come to some type of arrangement that will keep the regulatory authorities pretty much in line. So we don't consider it to be a large risk to us.
Thank you, Manuel and Nick. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.